Go easy on me. I'm already broken over this. Struggling. My wife and I have been married for almost 13 years and together for 15. We now have 2 kids. During our dating phase and prior to children, we were just completely in love. This wasn't just honeymoon phase love. It was the type of love that reminded me of my grandparents. They cared so much for each other. My grandmother passed not too long after my grandfather, and in my eyes it was because of a broken heart. Anyways, after 4 years of being married, we had our first kid. I expected things to change because we're now responsible for another life. She went full mom mode as expected. I'll admit I don't fully understand what a woman goes through after childbirth and should have been a bit more considerate, but over time, I felt insignificant to her. I remember talking to her multiple times, crying, and telling her I want my wife back. In retrospect, the family believes my wife suffered from postpartum depression. I guess I didn't expect this, plus the level of responsibility of having a newborn because I too fell into a depression, maybe empty nest syndrome. Regardless of what it was, it put me into a dark place. This feeling went on for about 1.5 to 2 years or so. This is when I started talking with a female coworker. Nothing sexual or physical ever happened, and we never saw each other outside of work, but we did text each other. The conversation was never romantic, sexual, or anything of that nature either. A lot of it was really about how I was feeling in my current situation, but it was also a hidden relationship. I also think there was a mutual feeling that if something did escalate, we would both allow it. At some point, my wife found out I was texting the other woman and threatened to leave if I didn't show her the conversation. At that point, I had purged most of it to the point where, if you read it, it didn't even make sense. I showed it to her. My wife moved past it, and we went forward. To try to trim down on an already long and growing post, I wound up having a physical affair with 2 women. One was only a few interactions, the other started close to the birth of my second child and went on for about 9 to 10 months. During this one, I thought it was something more than what it was, but shortly into it I realized it was just filling in what I was missing from my marriage. At this point, I realized that I didn't want this, and what I was doing wasn't who I really was. Prior to this era in my life, I had never come close to cheating. It so happens that the girl tried to nuke me and intentionally left an object of hers in my car. I found it and purposely left it in my isn't pocket because I wanted my wife to find it and confront me so I could come clean. I wasn't strong enough to bring it up first. She had found it and did exactly what I wanted, but I got scared and lied about it. Part of the reason it went on so long was because I kept trying to cut it off in a cowardly way, e.g., making excuses not to see her for a few weeks at a time. The girl again tried to nuke me and wound up texting my wife from a burner number, just talking nonsense. I played it off. Shortly after this, I went on a business trip and had my full moment of clarity. This is definitely not the life I want to live. I love my wife and need to make this right. Ironically, when I came home, my wife confronted me. This time I told her. Kind of. Again, I got scared and downplayed my situation. My wife would up texting the number back and accepting whatever details were given to her. Some were accurate and some were twisted to favor the girl. I didn't recall anything being completely off base. We talked, fought, strategized, fought more, talked more, etc. And shortly we decided to go to couples therapy. I let her pick the counselor and program so that she would feel comfortable. A 3-day intense therapy that would solve all of our problems, so we thought. Post-completion, she felt that the counselor defended me and she didn't need me, which I'm okay with this one because I never want her to feel she requires me. For the next 5 years, we lived kind of day by day. We'd sometimes talk about it and sometimes fight about it. Sometimes during those fights I'd get upset. Not necessarily with her for bringing it up, but mostly at myself for putting us in that situation. Up until this March, I thought things were Functioning. Not ideal, but operational. I noticed a change in behavior in my wife. She began acting distant and paranoid, saying things like she feels I'm monitoring her. I remember one time I walked into the room she was in and she immediately barked at me. "What are you doing? Checking on me?" That didn't go over well. Eventually, I confronted her about the changes. She said that she wasn't really happy with us. This wasn't something new. I asked her if she was talking to or seeing someone else, and she said no. Sparing some more details to trim the story, I found out she's been talking to and seeing her ex. No idea if there's any sexual activity, nor do I really care. An affair is an affair is an affair, no matter how it's sliced. She was supposed to stop talking to him 3 times now, and I keep catching her. The most recent was about a week ago. However, at this point a few things are different. 1. Divorce is seriously on the table. 2. We're days away from closing on a new house that our kids are going to love and benefit from. 3. We're taking about stay-together options, one of them being opening the relationship. I didn't really enjoy the options on the table, but haven't been able to come up with anything better. It almost seems like her continuing to talk to him has to be part of it. I find it amusing, because she always mentions that she wants what is best for the kids. To me, that is us working out our issues and maintaining a living and healthy relationship. For her, that means we stay together for the kids. Now, I mentioned the options thus far. Part of opening the relationship entails us having a romantic and loving relationship, trying to fix us, and us, our family, being the priority. I'm not sure this option is one that I can go through with, but I truly want what's best for our kids. My oldest is the sweetest, most family-oriented young one I know. I can't even think about how crushed they'd be. So if this helps us get through our problems and shows the kids what a loving, not cold, marriage looks like, then I'm open to consider it. Long story, but I felt the details were necessary to paint a true picture instead of half-assing it to get half-assed advice in return. I already am upset with myself for what I did, and I know I brought a lot of this on myself. But still, thoughts are welcomed. Edit. I forgot to mention her ex is also in a relationship, not married, but fairly long-term.